Hi, Fred here. A lot of you folks know that I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and we just had the Marine Corps birthday. And it got me to thinking about one of my most interesting times in the Marine Corps was actually in boot camp. And I'm sure you've seen some movies about boot camp. Boot camp is an interesting time when you're tested, when you're challenged to be as good as you can be, when you have to learn a whole lot of things. As part of that, we had to learn how to field strip the M14 rifle. So you practice that quite a bit in classroom, and one of the things you actually practice is you practice field stripping it. That's taking it apart and putting it back together blindfolded. And one afternoon after we had practiced that a number of times, the DI had each of us go to the end of our rack, which is the bunk bed that you sleep in, and sit on our haunches and field strip our M14s on our footlockers. That's where you take them apart and put them back together completely. And the way you know that you've done so properly is if at the end you click and the rifle does in fact fire, obviously without a bullet in it. You know then that you've put it back together properly. So we were all told to blindfold ourselves and to put a towel on our footlocker and to go ahead and take it apart and put it back together blindfolded. And the DI told us to put our blindfolds on, and he said start, and whoever gets finished, stand up. Obviously we were blindfolded, so we didn't know who finished first, so I took my rifle apart, put it back together, and I stood up, and we were told to yell out that we were finished, so I did. And it turned out I was the very first one finished. So the DI marched up to me and said, "Private Westermeyer, are you certain that you put your rifle together properly?" So of course I yelled, "Yes, sir! I did, sir." He said, "Private Westermeyer, are you certain that you put your rifle together properly?" Of course I yelled, "Yes, sir!" But then I was starting to doubt myself, because he told me to take my blindfold off, and he told me to give him my rifle, and he said, "Private Westermeyer, do you know that I came over and I took one of the parts," I believe it was the sear pin, and if the sear pin was not included when you put it back together, it wouldn't fire, it wouldn't operate properly. So I was really starting to get worried at that point. But he asked me one more time, "Are you certain that you put your rifle together properly?" And I yelled, "Yes, sir!" And he said, "You know, Private Westermeyer, if I try to fire this rifle and it's missing the sear pin, it will not fire properly and you will be in a world of hurt." So I really started doubting myself, but once again I said, "Sir, I put it together properly?" And he said, "Well, okay, but I have the sear pin right here in my hand that is supposed to be in this rifle." I said, "No, sir, I put the sear pin in properly." And he, "Are you sure, Private?" I said, "Yes, sir." And when he fired it, thank God it went click. Turns out I learned later that what the DIs do is they have a sear pin in their pocket, and they do this all the time when they run this particular drill. So the sear pin that he had was not my sear pin, so it fired properly, and therefore, at least on that day, I wasn't in a world of hurt. A story from boot camp, Parris Island, 1964, platoon 248.